What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi here. We're going to be talking about the Tour Championship. Sheets is hopefully going to drop a little lineup build thing later on for golf. And reminder, if you're watching this on Wednesday, I won't be good for live, but Sheets will be there for baseball. And we're going to talk through. Look, these are tough. They're not as much fun for DFS. They're interesting in real life because everybody's going to play their best, and it's a huge tournament and all these things. You can see what I'm sort of considering as my core, just scrolling down there. That's sort of the 6 guys I have as my guys I want to sort of build around in this tournament. I'm going to take a quick look and actually, I posted my early exposure, from my early builds. I'm scripting the $5 tournament. I'm playing 150 in that, and I'm playing the 555 as well as the one of the 200 single entries, a couple other single entry stuff. But it's a tough week. It's a tough week to try to get different, and it's going to be really strange because even these expected ownerships that we're seeing on Scotty and on Scotty and Xander, I'm just guessing they're going to be a little higher owned than they're projected. To be honest with you, it might be just as simple as, look, you play these 2 guys, you hope for the 1-2, and you're already starting 10 strokes under and 8 strokes under with Scotty and Xander. We have Matsuyama with the back questionable, who we expect to play. Maybe that keeps his ownership down a little bit. We've got McIntyre, questionable. I think that might affect his ownership. I'm sure that Goldie and Cheats will have their projections updated a little later. But the weird thing is, so if you play DFS for a while, you're used to seeing. I remember John Rahm being like 15K, I think, when he was in first, because you got the giant lead and everything. We also haven't seen the guys with the giant lead winning. Rory won a couple years ago, starting at 4 under. So I'm going to try to play differently. I actually was flirting with it. If I was just raking in the money and had all the money in the world, and I would run a couple sets. I would run one for the big $25 the sand trap, and one for the for 150 in the $5. And I actually think, just to be super different, I'm just curious what would happen if you X'd out Scotty and Xander. Now, I'm not doing that. My highest owned player right now is Xander. My second highest, or Scotty's my 5th highest owned player. But I am trying to play some lineups without them, and I expect mine to be possibly a little bit under the field on Scotty, at least anyway. But I don't. It's only just because I believe the ownership is going to actually end up being much higher than this, in the 60s probably, for both these guys. And I think you're going to see lineups with them together, and I think then you're just narrowing your build too much. So a couple of things that I did when I added my script to it, I put my settings as you could see the salary. I sort of tightened it up on the lower end, but I made it only up to 49.8, just to get a little different, not spending all my money on any builds unless I hand build. And even then I ended up with some 500 left on the table, and I just think it's a good way to differentiate on a slate that's really, really hard to differentiate on. So just one little thing that I did, ended up going, I wanted to get a little bit more spread out. So here's what we've got. Okay. So starting at the top 4 guys, and I'm going to go, let's just go through 9K through 12. Well, first I'll talk about, Scotty and Xander, in my opinion, this should be more like 14K and 12 between the 2 of them. Everybody else I'm okay with the prices on, but I do think they should be significantly higher priced than everybody else. I personally like Xander. I think he's looked better lately. I know this is more of a Scotty's back to, of course, he knows and everything, but he hasn't really played all that great here before. It feels like a time where I've never picked Xander over Scotty, but I definitely am a little bit more on Xander's side this week. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be on Scotty. I think I still have almost 40% of them. I'm expecting these ownerships to be in the 60s. I really am. It's just so hard to not play without those guys at the top. If you weren't going to, you'd play Matsuyama, but I think people are going to be worried enough about his back. And again, I think his ownership is one I expect to be lower, a little closer to the flagship as opposed to Goldie's projections, for example. I also expect, Oberg is going to be a little bit lower owned than and he and Rory in the same price range, where Oberg has an extra stroke. I'm going to lean a little bit more on the Oberg side, even though Rory's been great here. So I am. Look, Xander's my favorite in the 10K plus range. Scotty second. I am also not just concerned about Matsuyama's back, but if we get a good go ahead, it depends on really when you hear. If that Q tag stays up there until late tonight, early tomorrow, I might think that it makes more sense to go heavy on him, because I do think those things scare people off, and perception is really important in DFS. And you're trying to find every little angle you can this week. You can see the difference in projected score between Xander and Scotty and everybody else. And it's a pretty large gap. So you don't really usually see that in golf. It's Scotty. Sometimes you see a little bit of it, but when you're starting 10 strokes ahead of the bottom guys, 2 strokes ahead of Xander, 3 strokes ahead of Matsuyama, 5 strokes ahead of Oberg, all that stuff, it just feels like that's what people are going to end up doing. And I think you're going to end up getting more Scotty and Xander than currently being projected, as I keep mentioning. So I am going to say that, in that order for the top 3, Xander 1, Scotty 2, Matsuyama 3. In the 9K range, it's a little bit interesting because I think that somebody's going to sort of fall out of favor here, but nobody's all like, it's not that crazy ownership anyway. If we're trusting the flagship ownership over Goldie's, which I think when Goldie updates, it'll probably be closer to this. I love the idea of being way overweight Oberg this week. If you were going to fade Scotty and Xander in a lineup, I think you're going Oberg, Rory, maybe Maury or Cantlay. You could throw Keegan in the mix as well. But I think that's sort of the way you're starting your build if you're not playing the top 2 guys. So I have it in this range, Oberg, McIlroy. Basically, I have the same amount of both, but I'm obviously much more over the field on Oberg than I am on Rory, just because they're both going to – I'm expecting Rory to carry more ownership. And then my next one is Morikawa, followed by Cantlay. So I've got it ranked in that order. Going into the next tier in the 8K range, very small range this week. Keegan actually, you could argue, should be more expensive here. So I have this range ranked though. I have it actually Burns, Clark, Hovland. I actually have interest in all 3 of those guys very similarly. And Bradley is the one who may end up a little bit on the outside looking in. I'm just going to have to rerun ownerships a little bit later before I make my final decisions on that. It should be fun either way, a fun golf tournament. And look for some straight bets. I can't do the straight bets from where I'm at. I have to have my buddies do them, and I shouldn't even be saying that on air probably. But I'm not actually going to probably make any this week. But if there was guys who could come back and win, I think you're looking at guys like it's possible for a guy like Keegan to get hot again. It's possible for Rory to do what he did a few years ago. It's possible for Oberg to just play lights out because when he's on, he looks like young Scotty, whatever, just Scotty. He looks like Scotty. That's what he looks like. In this range, I'm going to be heavily favoring the 7K range. I'm heavily favoring the Finau Fleetwood Sungjae mix. You all know I'm biased towards Fleetwood anyway. I love the guy. I think that he's an absolutely awesome player. And I think that he's just underrated overall just because he hasn't won on the US on the PGA Tour. He's won on plenty of other things. But you don't need him to win. But I like this range. Finau, Sungjae, familiar with this place. Good form lately. So I'm heaviest on those 3. A little bit lower than the field on Scott. A little lower than the field on Henley. Lower than the field on Lowry. Lower than the field on Benny On. Although I'm tempted because the ownership, I was tempted to go the other way. But I like the other guys better. Lower than the field on Horschel. And lower than the field on Thigala. So it sort of makes you explain when I talk about the other guys I like. I can be underweight those guys, so I can be overweight the ones I really want, getting close to 40% of each of Finau, Fleetwood, and Sungjae. For what it's worth, there is weather. There's not real weather stuff. It's just if there's any weather edge, it would be the late then early, because the afternoon on Friday looks like it could get a little bit messy. But the problem is those guys are all the 6K guys because they're all doing it based on where they're starting. So all these guys down in this range is probably going to be what makes or break your tournament. So Akshay is another one I need to rerun the ownerships on because I would like to be overweight the 11%, and I would go 20 some odd percent. If it's 20%, I'm probably going to go a little bit under that. Justin Thomas, people are just, I think, going to play because he knows the place. I have no issue with Justin Thomas here, but I personally would probably try to go a little underweight that. I love Sepp Straka here. Has played well here the 2 times he has been there. Always started from the bottom, so his finishing position won't really result in telling you how well he played. But he has played pretty well here at 6,700. I like Sepp Straka. I am on the side of being underweight McIntyre right now. Maybe it comes back to bite me. I'm not really worried about it. Pendrith, sort of near the field. Rye, basically near the field. Bezuidenhout is one I'm overweight on. And Chris Kirk is one I'm overweight on. Tom Hoagie is one I'm overweight on. Matthew Pavone is one I'm overweight on. So that's why I can be way underweight all these 7K guys and be overweight this bottom of this range. And again, like I said, I like the idea of like, I mean, look, if you have a lineup at 50, you're using all your salary, maybe play Pavone instead of Kirk or Hoagie. Maybe you go even further, maybe playing him instead of Rye. You're just playing game theory at some point when you're playing a tournament this small. So I think that's really important. I'm going to pick my top 6 for this week, how it's going to shake out. I have Xander 1. I have Oberg, and my wild prediction is Oberg finishing 2nd. It's not even that wild, but I'm just saying I do think he's gonna play well this week. I think he might do what he normally does with the new course, start off slowly and then just hammer. So I'm gonna play him in showdowns on Friday and Saturday, pretty much regardless of how he's doing. And then we'll see about Sunday, of course, because finishing position obviously matters, especially on those. But I have it Xander, Scotty is the most logical, or Scotty Xander, one way or the other. But I like Xander, then one of Scotty or Oberg. Those are my next 2. I think Rory has an excellent chance to work his way into a top 4 spot. And then I'm sort of going through my favorites. I'll just go through my favorites of each range, but that's sort of how I was talking myself into playing the top. And then I think one of these guys from down here comes and sneaks their way into like the top 6 or 5 or something like that. I like the idea of going with Wyndham. He's hot. He's played here before. But I also really like the Finau and Sungjae. Those are my big movers along with Fleetwood. So those are the ones I'm betting on the most. We can't really play the game like we usually do because it's too strange with the strokes and everything, and you're just going to end up with the same picks. But I, again, just want to highlight that I love Sepp Straka here, and I'm really letting ownership dictate what I want to do with guys like Bhatia, Thomas, Aaron Rai, and that's why I'm sort of underweight at the moment, those guys, based on Goldie's projections. However, I'll be overweight if I believe that the flagship is actually right here at SaberSim, and we'll see. Anyway, so I really, this is what I've got. This is my early core, my exposures. I'm just going to take a quick look at my highest owned golfers. I did post all of them for the people in the Discord. Anybody who's a site member can access that. But right now, in terms of my golf exposure, I've got Xander number 1, followed by Sungjae, Scotty, Finau, who have the same amount of each. Then Oberg, then Fleetwood. And then I have the Sam Burns. I have some Thomas and Rahm, but I'm going to probably lower that by the time things lock. Victor Hovland is another one that I like. I mentioned Wyndham Clark, Rory, and Sepp Straka as my next own. So that's just a little bit of what I'm doing this week. It's a tough week. I wish you guys all the best, but I think it's going to be an interesting one to try and get different. And I would just say leaving money on the table is probably number 1 in terms of how you can get different. Number 2 would be to try to fade one of Scotty or Xander. If you can fade both of them and get away with it, hats off to you. And I'm trying it. I think I have 15, 16, maybe a little higher than that % of lineups that don't have them in it. I wonder what percentage of lineups won't have them in it by the end. I really think it's going to be it's going to be like 5%. Maybe in the lottery, maybe it'll be a little bit higher, but I don't think so. It's just really hard when you build to not want to include at least one of them. And honestly, playing both together, you just run yourself into a very narrow build. So you might want to leave like 500 on the table if you do try to play them together, which is tough. That means you're going to also run into other things that other people have, but you're going to at least be differentiating with the salary. And that's what this kind of week is for golf, is just how to get different. And those are my ideas. So I wish everybody luck this week. I hope it's a great one. You guys have been awesome, and we appreciate it. I want to remind everybody, get ready for NFL. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Promo code NFL24, 24% off your first month, 10% off your yearly subscription. Unbelievable deals pricing-wise when you compare the similar things in the industry. I really would encourage you guys to check it out. You get everything SaberSim has to offer if you use this code at less than SaberSim in most cases. And you also get all of, on top of SaberSim, you get all of Goldie's stuff, all of Sheets' projections, which have been just on fire all season. Anybody who's been following us just sees that Sheets wins like every week. It feels like the guy just wins a fortune. I know it's not actually the case where he wins a fortune every week, but it feels like it. And it is, it's been plenty of the weeks, and the guy's had just an incredible year. You also get all of my content, all of Rody's, all of Brandon Cruz for NASCAR, and also some showdown stuff. And also we have DFS Chan who pops in for our League of Legends series and stuff like that. So I really think it's a great offering. Check it out. You can try it if you want to mess around with it. Try the 3-day trial for $10.99. It's the ultimate package. You get all the sims and everything like that from SaberSim, and it's a pretty awesome deal. So check out everything. We appreciate you all. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend in golf and every other sport. And good luck to everybody. We'll see you guys hopefully at the leaderboard, top of the leaderboards. Hopefully we have some fun golf sweats this weekend. Remember, it's a good time to get